Well, as I look out the window, there's plenty of clouds in the sky, not much sign of any blue sky, and I have to say that the state of our high streets is fairly grey and gloomy. And we've got to focus on that because with lawless Britain, I think we've been through what I would call a bad phase. And we're actually now at the beginning of what I call a crisis phase of lawlessness before what comes down the track, and that will be a dangerous phase. And there are two elements to what's happening on our lawless high streets now, which I will be touching on. We've got the absurd situation where, thanks to the deliberate policy of authorities, of judges, of government, that actually there's no deterrent if you steal, if you thieve from shops, if you are a shoplifter. So you've got this case now where groups of feral youths are happy just to sort of roam and rampage down our high streets. We saw it highlighted this week with Oxford Street, wearing hoodies and masks, running complete amok with impunity. No fear, no sense that there might be consequences to this. Not only is it antisocial behaviour, but it's theft, it's stealing, it's illegal. But if there's no fear of the consequences, don't be surprised if there's going to be an exponential increase in what's going on. You've got a situation where shops are struggling to recruit staff now because they're so terrified, and yet security staff for the shops are now told not to apprehend the thieves. This is absolutely mad. We should be doing exactly the opposite. We need a total broken windows policy. You apprehend and stop and bang up every single thief. Every single one of them. That's how you stop and get on top of this illegal behaviour. You don't just excuse the fact that they're teenagers and young folk without enough to do. No, it's illegal, it's wrong, and we've got to stop it. I spoke back on the 18th of June about the need for a first strike and out policy. If you carry knives, take people off the streets immediately. Well, I'm telling you, we need exactly the same with this criminal activity of stealing, thieving, shoplifting. You've got to apprehend them. Here's a thought that'll probably get me in trouble. Maybe we need some mobile cells with some grills in them that you could sort of stick in the middle of the high street with holes in, and maybe you could sort of, you know, have a bit like, do you remember the old It's a Knockout? You could have a lid and you could have some bloke on top. You put the thieves into the mobile cell, and some bloke on top of it just opens the roof and pours a bucket of smelly, grungy slime on them. Because we need to name and shame these rogues. You remember the old rotten eggs on It's a Knockout? Maybe that's what we need. I'm sort of joking, but I'm half not actually. There has to be a fear of the consequences. The truth is, you don't just let these thugs and idiots go. You don't say, well, if it's below 250 quid, you get a slap on the wrist and a caution. I mean, is it 5 cautions or 10 cautions or 20 cautions before you get any other sort of detention or consequence? No. My view is you take people off the streets first time, straight off, that day. If there's video evidence, which in almost all situations there is, of these people, and this is why they wear hoods and masks, because they don't want to be identified on the videos, do they? So that's why we need to ban the hoods and the masks in stores. I want to see who's there. So do the staff who are working there. They don't want to be terrified. They want to see your faces. And if you say it's impossible, let remind you what goes on in France. They've banned the burqa in France. If they can do it there, I think we can ban the odd mask and the odd hood in stores here in the UK. It's time to get real. It's time to get tough, folks. We shouldn't put up with this nonsense. What you do is you pick them up, you take them straight off the streets, and you take them to a detention centre. And I'm going to be talking in the third hour about how we build thousands rapidly of modular, flat pack type detention centres I'm literally talking about the IKEA of modular units with pod showers and things. And I want to build them in some cold, inhospitable, damp, distant part of the United Kingdom. And you take them straight there. If you've got the video evidence, there's no ifs, there's no buts, there's no excuses. It's illegal. And we're going to stop it. And if they disappear for a few months, all of a sudden their mates are going to wake up and realise that actually they can't just rampage around on our streets. We don't want them there. Enough is enough, folks. They're gone. And they get a decent sentence. And within that sentence, maybe they can get fit, get a proper bit of, what I call boot camp. What people used to do when they joined national service and joined the armed forces. Maybe a bit of community service. And then, yes, in the second part of the detention period, you do some rehabilitation so that you recognise the error of your ways and you never do it again. Because I tell you, if we don't do this, it gets worse and worse. And the copycat rampaging has already started, whether it's Southend, Brighton or elsewhere. This is what's going on. Oh, and thanks a bunch, TikTok and Instagram, for your help in this. Yes, you, social media, supposedly kind and compassionate folk. TikTok, you took me off. You cancelled me because I dared to talk about gender questioning, but you didn't cancel the adverts, did you? Advertising illegality and thieving and stealing on our streets, did you, TikTok? What have you got to say to that? Come on my show and defend yourselves. They have a role to play in this nonsense, and it's got to stop. The second element of law breaking is, of course, to do with, and I'm going to be talking about this straight afterwards, after the first break, to do with what's going on with the shops. I mean, there is massive illegality from the occupiers of these shops. The explosion of barbers' shops up and down the country, we've touched on that before. But candy shops, sweet shops. Do you think all of a sudden everybody's buying more expensive sweets that are fakes? They're not at all. This is an absolute haven for money laundering. On Oxford Street alone, there are at least 25, possibly 30 candy stores. I've been in some of them. I've checked them out. You don't recognise any of the labels. They look suspiciously like labels that you might recognise. There's very little pricing on them. And when you ask to see who's the manager, the staff don't know who's the manager. None of them seem to speak any known language whatsoever. As far as I can tell, it's utter chaos. This is illegality on our streets. The landlords know it. The local authorities know it. These shops, they're not paying any rates. It's unbelievable what is going on. And we've got to stop it. Because if we don't stop it, if we allow this illegality to go on, then it just gets worse and worse and worse. We know that these candy shops are essentially centres of money laundering. We know that the barber shops... I was talking to someone from a northern town just the other day. 40 barber shops have opened up on a couple of streets of this northern town after the arrival of a dominant group of asylum seekers and refugees from one particular nation. Now, that may be a complete coincidence. And I'll get, no doubt, some people will castigate me for daring to make a possible link. But we have to have the courage to talk about this stuff. And I'm telling you what this is. This is a money laundering front for drug cartels. No ifs, no buts. Our hair hasn't started to grow quicker because of COVID, for heaven's sake. Have you noticed more barbers in your area? Have you spotted that there might be more candy shops in your area? And have you noticed that they're rather keen on cash? I wonder why. Now, we need cash because we don't want to be cancelled. But there's another side to what is going on. Have you noticed how few customers there are in these candy stores and these barbers' shops? Funny that. They sort of don't really care if they have any customers. You see, What goes on in the barber's shops is they get a couple of real customers and then they fill up the diary, the appointments book, with fake appointments, and that's how you launder the money. The local authorities, they either know and ignore, which makes them grossly negligent, or they're unaware, which also makes them grossly negligent. So here we are, in the United Kingdom, August 2023. We're supposed to be getting better as a nation, and yet we've got feral illegality from rampaging youths on our high streets. And we've got organised criminal illegality also on our high streets. And it's ruining the life and the community spirit for so many. It doesn't matter how many times you walk up a high street, there's not much to buy if it's full of candy shops and barbers shops. So you don't go. And if you don't feel safe, the impact on all of us, on our communities, is unacceptable. And it's you and I, all of us. We're the mugs because we're paying for it. Are you sick of it? I'll tell you what I am. I think enough is enough. What do you think? I think it's time to reclaim our high streets.